just trying to keep busy, trying to work, trying to keep sane, getting out doing a lot of mountain biking, trying to keep active, trying to shed a couple of pounds, and yeah, and just
Yeah, I see the bike riding. That's kind of fun.
yeah, I've been doing it a lot, so
That's good.
yeah, it's fun, fun stuff.
That's good. Are you playing music?
Playing music always, yeah. That's
good.
always like the sort of daily meditation at some point.
Yeah,
Sit down for a few minutes and clear your mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to have you here, and I love talking about these heavy metals, and you're the
Me
guy
too,
to
man.
talk about them.
Yeah.
And I got mine in hand. I went and looked through my bin. I'm like, okay, where's the one I got? And I picked a 77. So we got one of the early ones.
Yeah,
And
first year.
I thumbed through it, and we've got some fun stuff here to talk about. So
Yeah.
some of the classics. So this will be fun. Let's just go ahead and bang this out. So November 1977. You can follow along in your book or just watch us, I guess.
Yeah. This cover is pretty.
Yeah, who did this? What? Let me look. Proctor. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with his stuff other than this cover, and this cover is like almost a Hildebrandt kind of feel. I think maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reminds me of some of that kind of fantasy stuff.
Color is cool.
For sure.
Orange.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I love these ads too. It just like takes me back, like like these. What is it, Bosey balls?
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know that Bose was around back then.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't know ads in like comics and magazines and stuff.
Really, I had no idea that Bose. I didn't know it's been around since the 70s.
Yeah, and then Roger Dean posters.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, I actually have. When we flip the page, I have that one which they talk about, which is Views.
Oh yeah,
I've got that one. I want to get his others. Yeah, he's got like 3 or 4, I think, books.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a huge like Yes fan, but back in the day, I bought a couple of Yes albums.
Oh yeah,
primarily because the fold out albums were so amazing. Like just to look
it was
at.
like a 3. It was like boom boom. It was like big, huge panoramic.
Yeah, fold outs and just beautiful.
Really cool. No,
there's a lot of good stuff in this issue.
You know, and I think honestly, there's something to be said about that art because I wouldn't be surprised if there's a decent percentage of people who buy those albums for the art, like legit. You know what I mean? Because I think I'm trying to think. I don't know. I wasn't around. At least if I was a baby. It wasn't like posters were big back then. You couldn't get a poster like that. You know, the album art I think was a big part of the selling feature of these things.
Album art was definitely part of it, and I think the whole experience of listening to music was different. It's a lot more casual now, which is fine, but like, you know, and I'm sure there's people that get into it as deeply as you know when I was a kid, but I would sit there with the album covers and just like sort of drop into that whole world, listen to the music on headphones and just
be transported.
Just be transported for sure.
Yeah. So we see some big names here when we look at the contents. A couple Mobius.
Yeah.
We got Richard Corben. We've got Kaza. We've got Tardy, Harlan Elias. We got a big cavalcade of like some of the best European and American artists. So I'm excited.
Nicole, who did that first cover, the cover for the first issue.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Letters page, and then the amazing Airtight Garage of Jerry Cornelius. So you know the origins of Jerry Cornelius?
No, not at all.
So it's a Michael Moorcock character, right? And he created Jerry Cornelius as this shared universe. So what he wanted to do was like just create this universe and this character and let other authors play with it. Mobius kind of like took that and ran with it so far away from the original concept that Michael Moorcock kind of disowned the idea. He's like, that's not really what I had in mind, which seems weird. But Michael Moorcock's pretty interesting cat too. Like wrote lyrics for the band Hawkwind. That was like Lemmy Kilmister's band before Motorhead. You familiar with Hawkwind? They're like
No,
this
I'm not.
psychedelic
Oh.
70s rock band. Like heavy on the concepts and stuff. So yeah. But this stuff is cool. And from what I understand, he did all this stuff like stream of consciousness style, and it kind of reads like that, right?
Yeah.
The Airtight Garage.
No, what stood out to me is just the panels, like the page composition of, you've got here like 5 by 5, panels. It's a lot of little art in there. And nowadays you don't see that so much. I mean, a lot of it is 3, 4, 5 panels, you're good. There's like 20 some odd panels in this thing. You don't see that much like movement and art crammed into a page like that. And this is 3 or 4 pages. You get a lot of fun artwork in this.
I mean, Mobius is an adventurous guy. He'll take things to the limit. It's like, it's weird. I've seen a recent comic that everybody like rants about, and it uses 9 panels throughout on every page throughout the whole series. And not and it's looked at like it's this innovative, like fresh thing, and I'm just like, I mean, whatevs. Like, to me, guys like this that take a chance to do stuff that's coming straight out of their head onto the page, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty exceptional. It's not something you see a lot of in sequential art and comics. There's select guys who are capable of doing that and are ballsy enough to actually put it in print.
And to just add on to that, there is no laziness to this. He's got full backgrounds, full detail on his back. Even the modeling,
the cross hatching alone.
The cross hatching of the bodies of the head and
like
the back.
This head.
I mean, he's doing a lot of work just in those.
The back frames. Of the head in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I actually can.
This panel here with the sort of like. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Like that's some like Franklin Booth type stuff, man. Like,
yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And
it's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, you're right. It's just like a 32-page comic jammed into like 4 or 5 pages.
I know, like legit, yeah.
But it doesn't sacrifice anything by the panel composition.
No.
Like,
well, and also the other trick to this is, putting the word balloons, and he's able to put a lot of dialogue on some of these within these small parameters and still keep the head. Like if you look at the first panel on the second page there, you see his head, and then there's a little paragraph right there, and just to be able to fit those in just right without like overlapping over the art and things like that, it takes a lot of design and like forethought and planning, and he had to like plan all this out, and it's not easy doing those word balloon placements and stuff like that.
And even like the first 2 panels on the first page, like completely cinematic.
Yeah.
Like that's some Sergio Leone stuff, from the faraway shot to the close-up shot. It's like classic, like Once Upon a Time in the West kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I dig the sort of phantom character, the stand-in guy who's I don't even know. He like lasts for this 4 or 5 pages, and then you don't see him show up in the Airtight Garage again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this he's just awesome. And this was great too because it was black and white. So like seeing this and just being completely something that you could do, you know what I mean? Because of the lack of color,
Yeah.
as a kid, you could be like, oh yeah, I'll grab a pen and you can just make a comic
And
black
just
and
draw.
white. That's, it's not something that I was, really exposed to early on, because I was coming from Marvel comics and stuff, and
Mhm.
you just everything was like, four colors, and then speaking of colors, my man Richard
Yeah,
Corben,
now we go the opposite direction.
yeah, of
180, super saturation.
yeah,
Yeah, really cool. I like the little photo of the cloud there. He kind of like pasted in, looks like.
no, he painted that for sure.
You don't think? You don't think that's like a photo that he kind of put in and then colored
No,
it?
man, you
Really?
gotta, yeah, I gotta turn you on to some of his. I have a
Really?
couple of art books that he has where he has a couple of fine art pieces
I'm gonna
where
have to give it
he's
a check.
doing stuff that's like
Yeah, you're right.
photorealistic, man.
No, you're right. You can actually see the
The grain,
the comic, you can actually see like the canvas texture of the canvas on it.
yeah.
So you can
I mean,
actually see that this was on canvas.
he
Okay.
exaggerates and caricatures so much in
Oh
his
wow.
comic work that you can sometimes forget
Wow.
that this guy is like a adept
Man.
at like photorealism.
Yeah. That looked like a photograph to me. That little like
Yeah, I mean
cloud.
it's
Wow.
amazing. That tower always reminds me of like the Dark Tower. Like
Uh-huh.
whenever I was reading The Gunslinger by Stephen King, I would
Yep.
always
I've not read that. I need to.
oh,
Everything
it's
tells
it's so
me
good.
it's so good. I'm intimidated by the
Yeah,
size of it.
the first one is cool, and you could probably like read that and get an idea of whether you wanted to continue or
Keep
not. And if you
going.
didn't, it would still be pretty
Yeah.
satisfying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just we talk about this every time we go into this. I love it. It's just
So that first panel with the blue sort of like gradation over the silhouettes, and then that green, the use of like complementary colors seems like such an easy go-to,
yeah.
but man, nobody
And
does it like Corbin.
and I really like when he opens up the panel, like in the bottom there. He just
Yeah,
opens it up. There's no border. I like it when he does that kind of stuff. And you get the silhouette of the horseback, rider.
yeah.
It's just really really neat. I'm a yeah. He's
He's
great.
he's just pretty
It's just
amazing. He's
yeah.
just like not scared at all of
I,
like using vibrant colors.
Yeah, I wonder what it was like for the printer. Like, is that a challenge to be able to get this high saturation on these things to print or to look right?
I think it was probably more an issue of paper quality too at that point. Like
Yeah, well,
this magazine benefited from being
the
printed on
wax.
slick paper,
Yeah, this is like the waxy paper. Yeah,
and also the
magazine.
the company that what was the name of the company, I forgot. Same company that did National Lampoon. They had experience in
Hmm.
magazine publishing and stuff, so they
Hmm.
probably had all the printers and everything lined
When
up for
you
that.
when you look at the analog version, you do kind of see a little bit of shift of like layers where it looks like the
Oh
plates or something. I don't know what that term is
yeah,
called, but you know what I mean? Where you see just a couple millimeters to the
yeah.
left
There's
is
just
one
like
layer of
offset.
another,
Yeah,
offset a little bit there. So you can kind of
off
see,
register.
yeah, how it's like put together there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
fascinating.
these scans are a little blown out. It
Yeah,
looks
those
like
are
a little
little,
tiny bit,
yeah.
um, and I don't know if
It's
it's
part of
just
it
due to
also
the
just because there's
computer
also
screen.
light. Yeah, the computer screen. Like when you're looking at something that's got light behind it, everything kind of
Yeah,
shines out more than a paper.
yeah. I like looking at the stuff digitally, but there's nothing like looking at the printed page, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think just the tactile thing, even now, is
Mhm.
still. And you see a
Yeah.
lot of. I mean, I think that's why. I think that's a common thing, especially for like comics creators, like seeing their stuff in print in a physical package, because I see I follow a lot of guys that are just like self-publishing and stuff, and they're still cranking out stuff in physical book form, which is awesome because I
Yeah.
love that, you know. And because it's like low print stuff, you kind of feel like you're part of this exclusive little thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Limited run.
Yeah.
Great shadows too, by the way. Just to be able to create the form, these three-dimensional figures,
Yeah.
and the
And the double
drapery.
lining.
I love his drapery
Like,
and kind of the clothing.
yeah, he's like really, really talented. And I mean, to say the least, like
Yeah.
just talented, but like he really, really knows his stuff when it comes to turning that form.
Was I talking to you about how I was looking at some Beasley painted Beasley, and I was like,
Yeah, I think maybe it was last time we talked about
and I
that.
was like, I never really connected that with Corben, but there was a couple shots. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks like he got Corben and then just like turned up the volume, kind of like what he does
Yeah,
with the Frazetta. I'm like, whoa, I
yeah,
never really connected it because there's that element, that duality of, very realistic, drafted, and then yet this cartoonish, exaggerated version as
yeah,
well. That's like somehow in the same image. It's really kind of trippy how he
yeah.
does that.
This is another guy who's like, who exaggerates and really leans into that, but is like a uh,
Yeah.
super capable, at realism when he
Yeah.
wants to be, which is
He
he's just a great artist,
yeah, he could have been a portrait painter. You know what I mean? And he could
Yeah.
have been doing that. I mean, he has the skills to do that. But then, he does
Have you
kind
ever?
of the other stuff.
I don't know if I've asked you this before. Have you ever seen his his illustrations from the Bible?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's all pencil work, but like
Yeah.
freaking amazing, man.
Oh
Just
yeah. He's got, yeah, his anatomy, everything. He's I mean, that
he's
doesn't happen unless you spend a lot of time. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
spent,
And
when
and
he's not
you
at the gym, he was drawing or whatever, because he, yeah,
yeah, and also some sort of like genetic eye-hand coordination thing, or like I don't know. I
yeah,
you know. And then on the next page, we got some Kaza, who's another one of my favorites
he's one of your
from
guys. Yeah,
yeah. And this in particular, this story in particular was just super mind blowing, kind of psychedelic kind of thing. Starts off with a little space scene with a lot of pointillism, but this guy's pen and ink work is like amazing.
yeah. And if you look closely, if you look down in here, it is pointillism. It
Yeah,
is pointillism. Even the things you think are lines, if you look really close, no, it's pointillism, dude. It's dots that are putting those together. It's again, it's really cool, man.
yeah. This piece
I
is
mean, and
pretty
it's
amazing.
very carefully done. I could see him saying, okay, these little like striations of the muscles of the chest muscle, kind of reaching across to the deltoid. I mean, he's sitting there, and each one is deliberate, and each one like, uh, yeah, it's not careless at all or anything like that.
No, a lot of his other stuff is very to my eye like very similar to like Mobius, a
Mm-hmm.
Mobius kind of thing, like a lot of cross hatching and like sort of delineating form with the cross hatching the way that Mobius is so expert at. And this is using a lot of this particular story is using a lot of solid blacks and pointillism, which is unusual for him, but like it, it for unusual for the printed stuff that I've seen. Maybe there's more stuff out there from him that's like this. This is stylistically a little bit different, but it's such a beautiful sequence of images.
Yeah, it's really
Sort of
good.
this like and all in black and white and like I mean, come on, these two panels like I mean these two pages or it's actually a single page right in the book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a double
Double
spread.
spread.
There's
The
just
only thing, the only my Western mind, my like logical brain sometimes wishes that while these things are beautiful, they're kind of ethereal stories, and they're kind of like head way out there LSD style, like trippy stories. I do at times wish, oh man, I wish this illustrator was tagged with a writer that like crafted a tale that was coherent and had these things, had resolutions and characters, and you know what I mean. Like sometimes I
I
wish some of
totally
these guys
get
like, oh,
that.
I wish they could be tied to a Morrison or a Moore or a Dylan or whoever Ellis that somehow communicated some of this, because when I'm reading it, and maybe it's just the translation, because maybe these were originally in
Right. We
French
had
or
talked about
Italian.
that too. Yeah.
It's just like, I just don't know what the hell. I don't really. It's not hitting me as much, right? The
Yeah.
visuals are, but sometimes like the overall like theme or story, just I miss it a bit.
You got there's a couple of things with that, I think. One, I think maybe if you did sort of like, and this is actually done with a writer, like,
Mm-hmm.
so a couple of things with that is like maybe being teamed with somebody as strong as like a Morrison or more would kind of like diminish
That's
the
true.
visual storytelling. Like they would be
Yeah.
reined in
Yeah.
by by a writer with a definitive vision and
Right.
that sort of thing. Where this is very, very visually driven. Like
Right.
I'm very forgiving of the stories in this magazine because I mean, it gets ridiculous at a certain point, like in the history of heavy metal, where it's just all TNA, and I kind of fall off that kind of thing because
Right.
I
Right.
just feel it's gratuitous and easy. Like it's an easy go to. Like
Yeah.
for me, hyper violence and gratuitous like sexuality, while I enjoy it in certain certain pieces of art, oftentimes people use that as an easy kind of go-to as like being outrageous kind of thing. Like it's easy to be outrageous. It's hard to be outrageous uh and put something across.
Mm-hmm.
There's that, and there's also too that the era that this stuff came out in, like 77, this is coming out of like an era where psychedelic rock, like rock and roll, was like a big cultural motivator, and sort of
Mm-hmm.
trippy nonsensical things, like you're coming out of a time where uh, there's a lot of experimental filmmaking. There's guys like Jodorowsky who are doing
Yeah.
like crazy, crazy stuff that was sort of nonsensical but outrageous and arty all at the same time. I think these guys are more vibing off of that. At least that's my interpretation of it. Maybe who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe I'm
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
completely wrong, but like that's kind of the vibe that
Yeah.
I go into. Like I could go into like and watch El Topo or Holy Mountain and watch it through the lens of 2020 and find all
Yeah.
kinds of things that are completely inappropriate. Or I could go in there and go, okay, this guy was trying to be outrageous,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't taking the easy route. He was trying to put this sort of messianic,
Yeah.
big universe,
Yeah.
psychedelic, like shock you in a way
Yeah.
that's not like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's a little deeper than that, but just as maybe grotesque and just as shocking. So yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying, but more forgiving, and maybe because I'm more like a visual
Yeah.
guy than uh, you know more. I mean, I guess that's not true. I like reading a good book and visualizing stuff in my own mind, but I really, really dig just outrageous visuals with exceptional draftsmanship and
Well,
like you know
yeah. And
so I forgive like sort of crappy stories
yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
easier if the visuals are really good.
Well,
Whereas
and
like the
that,
other way around, I'm not. You know,
yeah. Well, and I think that's what heavy metal's known for. Heavy metal's known for outrageous visuals that inspired a generation of filmmakers and creators and artists and everything. It's not known for necessarily like thrilling tales of, that's more EC Comics or Eerie or Warren publishing. But that's, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily
Joyce or Proust. It's but like, man, I'm looking at this stuff. And,
yeah.
And even after, mulling over this issue hundreds, if not thousands of times, I'm still super impressed by it.
Oh yeah. So tell me about this this next guy.
This next guy is he's Lesueur, I would say. Not guy. Yeah, I like his stuff. Not somebody that appeared too much. He's not like a guy that's like a standout repeat contributor, I think. Like, like Kaza or Corben or Mobius, Droulet, Inky Bilal, those guys were in a lot of issues. This guy I'm not super familiar with. I dig his stuff. He's another like incredible, like, I'm guessing French or
Italian, maybe.
What do you call somebody from Belgium?
Belgium, yeah.
Because it's that Franco-Belgian sort of thing, the crossover. They speak French in Belgium, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of crossover. Hurge, who did Tintin, was from Belgium, right?
Yeah.
What do you call somebody from Belgium? I don't know. Yeah, like stuff is super cool. And also the use of grays and stuff, like.
Yeah.
I wonder how he did that.
It looks ink washed. It looks like
very controlled, right?
Yeah, it looks ink washed. It doesn't look like any kind of a tone or anything. Yeah, I would say ink washed. You can kind of tell there in the lights up there on the page 1. It looks like kind of brushed in, painted in. I'm guessing a little bit, but I like the mechanics. I like all this, like, mechanical gears and stuff. It's pretty cool. And then page layouts are really neat. Just I like the way it flips over to the landscape mode. Yeah, it's really neat. I'm a fan.
And Nicole Clavillo has contributed
a lot. We see him a lot, right? Or at least in these first issues, we've seen him a couple times.
First few years, I think, is and also, like, a lot looser than like a Mobius or Kaza, but like still with that cross hatching and use of color is really great too.
Yeah.
And you got to think, like, you can't just use the gradient tool for something like in that last panel on the second page. Yeah. You got to like mask that off, airbrush it. And if you F up the airbrushing at that point on the last panel of an otherwise beautiful page, it's
yeah, I like this stuff. It's
kind of cartoony and crazy.
Yeah, it definitely feels it gives me kind of a the characters kind of got that 60s kind of vibe. I mean, I wonder if there was much crossover with things like Zap and Raw and those kind of American underground stuff with these, because they were before this, right? Because that's more a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that's late 60s, early 70s. But I gotta think that, like,
but Crumb
influenced everybody.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
this looks a little
Corben,
so to speak.
Corben was doing stuff in the early 70s, late 60s for underground comics, some stuff for like Eerie even and Creepy back in the day. So these guys had to have been aware of that,
Spiegelman, all those guys, the American kind of.
Yeah, I can't even like think of another guy to compare him to stylistically. It's a mishmash of a lot of cool things. Really weird, like this character and this weird cross between like Big Bird and the weird creatures from the Dark Crystal.
Now, who's this again?
This guy, I'm not sure. You're gonna have to check. Unless there's, I don't see a credit here. I see a credit signature down in the corner, but I can't really read it. But this is looser, but still very cool style. Yeah, and it's all like nonsense. It's all like nonsense in some weird language. I love that kind of stuff. Like
it makes you think. You know what I mean? It is kind of fun to just have something that's like kind of off the wall, bizarre.
Yeah.
Not like something that we kind of can understand easily.
Right. It's not like the hero's journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing. It's just some off the wall thing that fell out of somebody's dream head, you know.
Yeah.
Which I love that kind of stuff. I think.
Yeah. We don't. That's not very commercial now. You know what I mean? That doesn't sell as much. You know, I feel, at least. I mean, I feel everything has to have the standard kind of story structure that can be translated into something potential. You know, you don't have those kind of weird things. Did you get that? Okay, I'm going to sidebar for a minute. Did you see that link I sent you on Facebook with that little short film, that little 7-minute short film? I tagged you.
I don't think
you didn't
so.
see it. Okay,
I'm not on Facebook anymore, so.
Not at all? Oh, then I'll email it to you.
Yeah.
You got to see it. It's on Vimeo. It's a new little short, 7-minute short. It's actually, I won't even say what it is, but it's a 7-minute short that Ridley Scott made. And it's an ode to Mobius.
Oh, wow. Oh,
you got to see it. You got to see it.
Oh,
you got to see
man.
it. Oh, yeah. You're going to love it. You'll be like, what? Yeah. It's like, you'll see images and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like Mobius come to life. This is like Edina or Encall and those things that come to life. Pretty epic.
That's awesome. And speaking of Mobius, here's another Mobius.
I love his black and white. He reminds me a little bit of Monera with his black and white for some reason. I don't know. But the color, man.
See that.
I love the colors. I love the jungle. I mean, this page alone took like a couple days just to sit here, maybe more, you know?
Yeah.
I love the design. I love we don't see much costume right now, but in the next couple pages, I mean, just the costume designs, like he must have in his scrap files or morgue files, whatever you want to call them, he must have books and books of like every culture on Earth in the different eras, and you know what I mean, just to be able to like come up with the different like decorative like elements in these capes and stuff. It's really cool. I mean, just from a design perspective, he's pretty badass.
Yeah. I think at this point, he's done thousands of pages. Like he's done Blueberry at this point. Like, you know, he's done like.
So he knows
thousands of pages of these.
He knows what American West costumes are. Like he could just draw it because he's done it, right?
Have you watched the Mobius documentary yet?
No. Is it on YouTube?
It's probably on YouTube.
Probably, okay. Should I get on that?
You should check it out, man. You should check it out and we should talk about it.
Okay, that'd be fun. Actually, that'd be cool.
There's a little bit of Droulet in there. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Droulet is like a character, man. Like he's another like, I love that. I love that guy's art, and just a little bit that I've seen of him in video is just like I'm completely like I'm a fan.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the stuff is that Mobius spent some time as a teenager in Mexico, in northern Mexico.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In Mexico, actually.
Was it Mexico or is it?
Yeah, his mom, I guess,
in America, in New Mexico. Okay.
He might have made it up, but like I think the way that he got there was through Mexico. His mom married a Mexican man, and he went over there to visit and spent a lot of time. So a lot of that is just, you know, taken from his appreciation, and also too, like, you know, for doing Blueberry for so many years, the guy was probably a Western aficionado and was probably watched every, you know,
John Ford's
Western movie.
film and
John
everything.
Ford, yeah, exactly. Like with the
Yeah.
Monument Park
Yeah.
kind of vibe. I mean, that's what this all is. That last
Yeah.
panel is like totally looks like,
Okay.
you know, Arizona or New Mexico.
Okay, can we just mention how brilliant that gutter is? How it's the smoke, dude, turns into the panel gutter borders. That is, I've never seen that before, and I'm
And
just
somehow
like,
not
gosh,
obtrusive.
that it's so freaking cool, man. It's just
so
I love, and it just like fades. The color of the fire just kind of like fades off, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's the panel borders of this the smoke. It's just I love it.
Yeah.
And it's so
Also,
different
too,
than the other page. Look how organic and look how geometric the other page is, right? And then something goes boom, and it just goes into this like totally
just a king of pacing within. And you know, if you look at that first page, you really know you don't notice it immediately, or at least I didn't, but the hand-drawn borders.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Which
Oh yeah.
They're not ruled.
Yeah.
They're like just free-handed.
You're right. You're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Another thing is too, American artist probably would have made this creature fearsome and evil looking.
Yeah.
Mobius had the guts to like base it on an ostrich and still and make it even more like alien looking because of that. Like just an unusual unusual choice.
Yeah. But when he wants to get horrific,
man,
he can.
Like that last panel is that last page is pretty.
Yeah. This is
amazing.
Beautiful. One of the things I really appreciate he does when I'm working on figures, I'm doing a panel and stuff like that. And I always kind of stage my characters where you see their whole face, even if it's like this or it's like that, you see everything. But look how he's obscuring half of the face with the arm. You know, it looks so natural. It's just the positioning of that figure. We only see, a third of the face itself. We don't even see the chin. The cape kind of covers, but it adds so much more to it.
He's acting. Really he's doing physical acting.
Yeah.
And he's so great because you see in the other page, you see the timidness of the character. Like you get an idea of what that character's all about just from his body language, just from the way he's standing, stuff like that. That's maybe not something that's an obvious choice to a lot of artists.
Yeah, really cool. Just great
stuff. The last monster is like nuts, man.
And just the right amount of lines. He never over noodles it. He just the right amount of little lines to communicate with us the fold of the kneecap or the whatever.
Even when he goes nuts with like cross hatching, it never looks overworked to me. It looks like every one of the lines is
there's a reason
delineating
for it.
Form. It's like turning the form,
Yeah, exactly. Creating three-dimensional. This is beautiful too. And one of the things that just struck out me was the beautiful yellow and blue. Again, we go back to this contrasting complementary colors, which is right across the color wheel, those two, and they just work so well together.
It's an easy. I'm still. I guess everybody is still working on. I'm still working on color, like even in design work, it's still like a challenge to get that. But that's such a good place to start. Like just whip out a color wheel and just experiment with just just complementary colors and tertiary colors and just go and just like you can learn a lot of color theory just by trial and error that way. If you didn't want to get too formal about it, just a color wheel is a great freaking tool.
Really cool. I dig this a lot.
Yeah, this is great. Like the watercolory look of the bottom panels of the sky and stuff in that mountain.
Yeah. And then when he wants to, he puts in that violence, right? Just the blood and the guts coming out of her back and the creature. Just
he's he's just a fearless,
Yeah, he's good
a
stuff, man.
fearless guy when it comes to putting stuff on paper. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if he was like that in his, personal life or whatever, but like
Mm-hmm.
on the page, he just shredded. He just was like
Yeah.
amazing. Like that
Yeah.
was his home. And we've got this 1996 weirdness
Yeah.
that appears.
Who did
It's
this?
like
I think it
I
shows up
forgot the
twice.
guy's name, but it shows up. It shows up in a few of the
Mm-hmm.
first couple of years, a few issues of the first couple of years.
Montier,
Yeah, Montelier.
Montelier. Yeah, I like the ink washes, I like that kind of
Yeah, it's
stuff.
cool. It's kind of grotesque in a way, but like in almost an appealing kind of way.
So, what are these heavy comics? I'm looking at these, and I'm not familiar
So
with any
Slow
of these
Death was
titles. What is
Slow Death
this?
was like underground comic,
Huh.
and you can see here. There's a line. Richard Corben,
Oh.
Rand Holmes, William Stout, who's
Oh
amazing.
yeah. Oh
Jackson, I'm
yeah.
not familiar with. Uh, but yeah, just and then Star
Huh.
Reach was another one, right? Wasn't that Howard Chaykin's thing? Star Reach?
Well, that was Cody Starbuck was
In Star
a
Reach?
character. Well, it was an epic, but it might have been in Star Reach as well.
Yeah, Star Reach was like an anthology.
Oh yeah, yeah. It says Howard Chaykin there, so it must have been.
Yeah,
Or
but I
something
think it
was.
was like his deal. I think
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure, man. I may be talking
I don't know.
crap, but like yeah, a lot of cool artists. Frank Bruner, who I really like, who did a lot of Doctor Stranges for
Yeah.
Marvel. Oh,
Huh.
and did a bunch of like art portfolios too that are pretty amazing.
Oh, that's cool. So these are
And then
magazine formats, right?
no, I think these are like
Or
regular. I don't know.
comic?
I think Star Reach was magazine format, and I think Slow Death. I have a couple of them.
Huh.
Those were regular comic, standard comic size.
Hmm.
Yeah, just underground comics, which was going pretty strong in the
Right.
70s still. Like this I forgot the artist who did this. Is there E. Davis? Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot of stuff in other issues, but this always was
Yeah, I
super
like
cool
these
looking,
a
like
lot. I just like
painted.
the backgrounds. Yeah, just
Like look at that
really
that
kind of
that
yeah.
just
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting.
it's almost got a Droulet vibe to me
Uh-huh.
as far as the
Yeah.
color goes.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much as the pen and ink style, but
Yeah.
maybe some of the competition and composition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of Droulet, just the kind of his big
Yeah,
battles and
yeah, exactly. That epic,
creatures and stuff. And
ginormous.
yeah.
This guy over here looks like Jimmy Page or something. Looks like he photo referenced those two faces.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
probably.
pretty killer stuff. And then again, like the use of open panels.
Mm-hmm. It even
Love
reminds me of
that.
like a Prince Valiant, a little bit. That bottom panel there for some reason. Cool.
And then we got
I have not I have not read this, and I probably should because I probably would enjoy these little short stories. But I'm so lazy. I admit that I don't read the short stories, the prose pieces.
yeah, I get it. I don't know if this is a short story
Or maybe a
yeah, I guess
chapter
it
of
is.
one.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know who did this image here. Like I don't even know who did that.
Well, oh, is that another Proctor? Let me see if it's
Barter. I don't know, but that's a
pretty neat. Yeah.
pretty killer painting.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I
Oh
see
no,
a
sorry.
name.
No, I'm sorry. No, Tom Barber.
Oh,
Tom Barber.
Barber.
Yeah, there.
Okay.
Tom
Yeah, I
Barber.
don't know. I'm not familiar with that guy, but
Like it.
definitely has some
That's cool.
skills. Even though it's
Yeah.
a pretty like kind of mundane setting, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Harlan Ellison's pretty cool. I haven't read a ton of Harlan Ellison,
Mm-hmm.
but I like it. I've read A Boy and His Dog, and only I've read A Boy and His Dog because I saw the movie, and then I found out that Richard Corben and Harlan Ellison collaborate. Excuse me, collaborated on a sequel, and then yeah, so then I went back and like read a bunch of his short stories, and I dig them. I'm just not like, I'm sure at some point I'll read a bunch of Harlan Ellison.
Right.
So these are cool ads for like heavy metal graphic novels before like the graphic novel. They were called like collected volumes or something, I guess, at the store at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody was calling them graphic novels in the 70s or even
It'd be great to
not
get your
until
hands
like,
on some of those.
yeah. I still have like I don't have this Arzak.
You
I
don't?
really
Yeah.
love but I have like a beat up copy of Neverwhere that I bought when I was like 15 or something.
Oh wow. That's cool.
Yeah. That's like tucked away. And here's some Tardy.
Yeah, I do like Tardy.
Yeah.
I like his stuff.
Just a looseness and like just a really good cartoonist, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a lot, a lot of storytelling in the imagery alone.
Yeah, and he's got those kind of washes too. He puts some sort of some tones in there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some pretty graphic see going on here.
And especially back then, if you think about it, I mean, this is very, we weren't seeing, men genitalia mutilations at all in the States in the 70s.
Yeah, I think too, though, like at the time, this is post sexual revolution, that was still fresh in the collective psyche. So
yeah,
I think this magazine embraced a lot of that too, for like, probably all the criticism that it gets for being just like exploitive or whatever. Right. It's a lot of it is just, what was going on at the time in just culture,
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And then
what's this? Master. Nicole. Oh, this was
yeah, this is Nicole. Yeah.
Nicole. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Who did that amazing cover for for the first issue.
Yeah, you can kind of
like
see it
iconic.
Right there, right?
Yeah, you could see that. You could see the same stylistic thing going on. Just this something just beautiful and creepy at the same time. It is art.
It's so, in a way, it's so counterintuitive to paint comics like this because, 40 years before this, comics were disposable. It's something you read, you put it in the trash, you give it to your kid, he throws it away, whatever. And it's that kind of just immediate, fun thing. Even the Japanese still have that kind of mentality of like, I'm going to read this Takoban and I'm going to chunk it and get the next one.
Yeah.
But so there's that, right? The history. And then for some reason people think, oh, maybe I should just do a full-on freaking paintings of these stories. And it's so bizarre because you're thinking, okay, he's taking a week a page or whatever to paint this thing, maybe not that long, but yet we know that you're going to read that in 20 seconds. So isn't that kind of, it's so interesting to think about how this, who thought of the idea of like, oh, let me just like fully illustrate my comics and storytell that way when there's so much. Now, we had magazines that had, illustrations, of course, for years, like Collier's, or, you got like Rockwell and these other guys who did those, but they weren't like sequential. They weren't like telling a story like this, and they weren't like just
4 or 5 paintings a page.
Yeah. So it's just kind of fascinating to think about, like, someone decided to do that.
I think the Europeans were ahead of the game and sort of allowed. Also, too, there's their whole rant that, like, a lot of people have gotten into about how, 50s and 60s, these were guys that wanted to be like advertising illustrators who just,
that's a good point,
who just were doing it for the money. Like, they were capable draftsmen and they were like, okay, this is another way to feed my family. And, they took that route. And then there's guys who grew up, like all the guys that grew up to come, you know, like the Frank Millers and Bill Sienkiewicz and you know, countless others who came out of being fans of comics growing up and appreciating the art in comics, and then wanting to take it
to
the art
the next level, the fine
you know,
art
with
level,
a capital A, you know, and then, you know, they got exposed to this stuff. Like, you know, there's you know, how many interviews with Rick Veitch and guys like that like where they say, you know, and then I saw like heavy metal, what they were doing heavy metal just open up. And those guys were kind of like, you know, there was like the, God, there's like so many of them that like my brain is flooding. I can't pull a name out of my head, but a lot of guys that were just amazing, like artists that grew up being fans of comics, wanting to take it to that level, and then seeing this and going, holy crap, it is possible. It's possible to do this, and there's other people doing it.
Yeah.
Like there's some like legit kind of stuff going on here that would like even make people blush today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's still, it's like beautifully rendered. It's got this dark, like sort of melancholic tone to it because of, you know, it's colorful, but yet dark.
Yeah.
You know, pretty amazing stuff.
Really cool idea on the last panel there. The circle.
Yeah.
That's good.
That kind of reminds me of like Mobius kind of a thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
Like Ash actually does that a lot in Arzak, which is like what this advert on the next page is.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny when you look at like, you know, like they're reworking art, but like, you know, with the limitations of like paste up and mechanicals of having to hand cut everything and like set type and stuff. You know, you could do this in like 5 minutes in Photoshop and make it look fantastic. But at the time, like this was like, okay, we need to get an ad out. Let's take a piece of art that we have and just like block in a subscription form.
What's fascinating, I'm looking at the original here. I don't know if you can see very good at all, but look at the sky here on this versus your scanned copy. This looks, first off, you can see the canvas texture, but look how it's got this purple. It looks like yours is kind of remastered in some way.
Because this is, it might be that when it's scanned in, the saturation gets a little tweaked, or like levels get a little out of whack, and stuff that isn't.
It could be just this copy. I mean, with this copy,
that too.
Do they change? Do they vary that much between copies? Like this could have been a copy that just the purple came through.
Inconsistency of print, you know.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's not like you know digital printing is nowadays. You know, it was a whole.
It does kind of give me this idea that someone said, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Spiegelman or Burns or somebody, but the idea that the comic really isn't a comic until it's printed. Like
I think it was Spiegelman.
The process, you know, that nothing matters until this, like the paper with everything put together. This is the final art form.
So I think a lot of guys were of that mind.
You know, these pages don't matter. None of the other stuff matters. But what matters is like this
production art.
Yeah, the production, right? And
it's like your Photoshop file. Is that the artwork, or is the artwork when you post it to your, you know, your Instagram or your Patreon page or Twitter or what, you know, at what point does it become actual? You know, it's different, obviously, in the digital realm, but I'm trying to find a parallel to that in sort of modern terms.
Kind of fascinating. Okay, and here's more than 1996. I like the. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
It's kind of got like a Charles Burns weirdness to it, but you know. Burns is like this amazingly tight and clean draftsman. This
Yeah,
is
this is
obviously a lot
not
looser
that. Yeah.
and not, but interesting. You know, like all this stuff is just it's. I don't know if it's interesting in a
Experimental
time
too.
capsule kind of way. Yeah, too. It's not
They're just
something.
they're trying things, right? I feel like
It's
they're trying new things. They're kind
idiosyncratic
of like,
too. Like that's a big
yeah,
thing. Like
yeah,
appreciating the fact that like something doesn't look like, you know, the top 5 Marvel artists of the week.
yeah, yeah. That's a
And
great
this is
cover,
the
by the
back
way.
cover
Yeah, that's a
by
great
Barber
little.
again.
Yeah, I dig it. It's a cool little fantasy there.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is weird. Like not really like I see a lot of things going on here. It's actually really cool. I wonder what do you think that is? Are those oils or acrylics or what?
um, shoot, I don't know. I don't know. I would say
When did like
probably
acrylics
acrylics. I'd say probably.
become like a thing? Like acrylics weren't always like I really don't know about like that. You need to I know
Yeah,
that
I
people used to
mean,
use sort of casein and like gouache and stuff like that more back in the
yeah.
day. I mean, this is like 70s, is like
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been. It could have been either.
40
See,
years ago.
acrylics now are very different than what they were back then too. So,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the
acrylics now,
process of making them
yeah,
was
you
completely
could
different, right?
you could do a painting now in acrylics and it could look like oil. You'd be like, oh wow, that.
Yeah, I
So
actually
so you can like um, the quality. So because back in the day, I think acrylics were almost
throwaway
like
kind of
yeah,
cheap.
throw away like tempera paint or something,
Yeah. Well, I've
or
seen a lot of people
toaster,
do cool
toaster
stuff
paint.
with tempura. Yeah.
One of those two.
Um. Yeah, man.
Tempera.
Golden paint makes a cool acrylic paint,
I
but
like
it's like a
golden.
slow drying acrylic paint. You
Yeah,
can't. It's not
really.
like painting with oils, but
You
it's
don't add a
super.
you don't need to add a medium or anything to it.
You do add a medium. You
Oh, you
do
do.
add
Okay.
a special
Kind of
medium, but it's not like super toxic like linseed
right,
oil or stuff like that.
right,
You don't
right.
have to worry about like
Yeah.
I forgot what the name of the
Mm.
it's made by Gold and I've been messing around with it and did a few paintings with it.
Yeah.
It's like I love that stuff over regular acrylics. And
Yeah.
it's like my favorite like painting medium
Hmm.
right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Good stuff.
that's it, man.
I love these. I love these heavy metal issues. They're just fun to kind of like. I learn from them. Here's the deal. I'll go through this and I'll just learn things, and there's just an energy to it that is like it's going back in time, and yet in a way it's going in the future,
Yeah,
because it's like there's like stuff here that like people have tried and they haven't tried it again, or this guy could do it but no one else could really replicate it. And so there's this like element to these magazines like, oh, I want to reverse engineer that, I want to like somehow um, figure out how he pulled that off. And this it's really cool stuff. So I'm a fan, man. If you get your
yeah.
hands on heavy metals, I definitely recommend finding if you see somebody that's got them in their yard sale or a quarter bin. You won't find them in a quarter bin, but if you find them somewhere cheap, pick them up because they're good.
Yeah, they're great.
I'm
They're
tempted.
great.
I really want the completist in me, which is a very small part of me, does not want to do this. But there's another part of me that wants to clip these.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that.
And I
And I
really
was
want to, I know I can't do it, but I want to just like clip them so I could put them in my files of like all the Mobius or
yeah.
all of this or all the colors, like just like the big color things that I can look at, or the things that are like really about tone and values. And I would love to do that, but I know it would just like, it would just destroy the whole magazine. But I'm tempted to
Yeah.
just to use it more as a reference, use it more as a tool,
You
and not
can
like a collector's, right? Which I don't want to do.
right. You can. I mean, you could
But
scan
you
them
said you
in
could
and use it
scan
for
them.
that,
I
and
know.
you can you know
I need paper
there's
though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Or you could keep it digital and sort of like
Yeah.
find stuff. There's so
Yeah.
much, so many scans of, you know,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
of stuff on
I
the
know.
interwebs that you can
Yeah.
find and use as
Yeah.
reference. I hear what you're saying though. I like using reference that's not just digital because it's so, you know, the digital reference is cool. You have it right there up on your screen, but there's
Yeah.
also something about looking at the printed page
Well,
and pulling from that.
the variety, if you, so I bought like on eBay, I bought a stack of National Geographics, and I went through them
Yeah,
all, and I chopped them up, and I got them in I got my little folders here with the different
yeah,
things. Now,
little morgue file.
National Geographic, you're not, there's only going to get a couple things. You're going to get like mostly landscapes, some like native Aboriginal costumes and that kind of stuff. You're going to get kind of like a certain thing. You're not going to get like, you know, man and woman hugging type of images, but you'll get like third world country, shanty towns, stuff like that. But when I look at those, when I go through them, it's like there's images here, photographs that I can't find on Google Images. You know what I mean? Like stuff that's like, whoa, this is really cool. Or even like a health and fitness magazine or whatever. If I chop it up, I'm like, this image, if I Googled in woman doing chin up, I'll get those 20 pictures or whatever, but it's not this
That
one. You know
everybody
what I mean?
uses.
Yeah, that everyone uses. So it's like there is like a
Greg Land has already made like 5 covers out of it.
but you know what I mean though, right? Like there's just, and there's also that element of the photography of like, wow, this is a great shot. This is like really thought of, you know, and so there is I think there's value in finding things that are not on Google Images. I guess that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. I'm saying
yeah.
Google Images is low tier like reference.
I shoot
Create
a
your
lot of
own.
my
The best thing
own.
is to Photoshop your own.
I
I mean,
just
that's the best. Is, you
I
know,
mean, I'll just grab whoever's around the house and go, okay, like, you know, I need
do
this
this.
shot. And then, you know, I'm just looking for the general pose or like, you
Right.
know,
Right. Yeah.
some kind of the tilt of the head or something. That's something that I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
quite, you know,
Yeah.
cartoon the perspective or whatever. And like, you know,
Yeah.
and also too, I think like with my own stuff, I think I've gotten to the point of accepting my limitations and just kind of like chalking it off like, okay, there's 50 million guys that are better, guys and girls that are better draftsmen than me. I'm never going to
Hmm.
be a great draftsman. It's just not, it's not something, there's something about understanding your limitations and making them work for you, I think. Like, not that I've successfully done that. I'm not trying to say that, but it is something that I aspire to. Go, okay, this is what I'm capable of doing. How can I take the tools that I have and make them work for me in some kind of way
Yeah.
that's pleasing? And also, too, it's like, you know, I'm I'm more into like looking at it. You know, people may may bag on me for saying this, but like making it more like art. You know what I mean? I'm not looking to get signed by you know Marvel. I'm not not that there's anything wrong with that. Like that's your trip, then great. I mean, I wish you the best of luck, and if you've got the chops to do that, great. But you know, everybody's got stories to tell, and
Yeah.
if you are just like, oh, I can't do that because like uh, you know, I'm not as great as so and so, then nobody would ever do anything. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always that kind of internal struggle as a
Oh
creative
yeah.
person where you're trying to
Oh
like,
yeah.
you know, do the best quality thing that you can. But there's so many things with that. There's, you know, there's taste. There's, you know, nobody can really. Who's to say what art is, right? That's that
You're
comes
right.
back to that. It's like, you know,
Oh,
I, I'm in my own head. I'm the one that defines what things look pleasing to me. Like I dig Basquiat. Like I love Basquiat.
yeah.
My brother can't stand him. He just thinks Basquiat is like. But then, like you know, we'll look at like Jackson Pollock, and he loves Jackson Pollock, and
I
I'm
do
go,
like that.
well, I love Jackson Pollock too. I love Jackson Pollock. I love Basquiat. I love tons of abstract artists. Like I
Yeah.
really love abstract art.
Yeah, I do too.
um so like, but so how can you, so you like paint splatters, but you don't like the guy that draws like a kid, and you don't see, you know, you don't see what he's doing. Like, I could go and give you like this whole treatise on why Basquiat is great, but it's not going to change your mind unless you're open to having your mind changed on it. You don't like something, there's
beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Isn't
it's
that the
absolutely
thing?
true, man.
That's
And
the deal, right?
and even as an artist and as a creative person, that should be your guiding light, right? Everybody's got to eat, and if you want to be a professional artist, that's a different thing. But like, as far as making art, or let's say folk art or whatever, that's entirely up to you. That's entirely up to, and hats off to anybody who does take something like that on, to have the balls to like put something out there in the world that you've created
Yeah.
and open it up to a world of criticism, especially in today's world. Like, post something online and just get ready for like all the haters come out, regardless of whether it's good or not. Like, people can do amazing stuff and there's still be haters, so can't pay attention to that shit.
Well, and you're going into this idea that everyone struggles with is, is commercial art the goal of making money for your art? Is that somehow lower tier because of the simple fact that more people have to like it? Meaning, so it's like, if everyone's got to like it, then in some way it's a little less value than the stuff that maybe not everyone gets. Now that sounds elitist, but you know what I mean? It's like, okay, if I want to write for Marvel or whatever, or make Marvel comics, then I got to tell a certain type of story that the general masses can digest. I can't be David Lynch working for Marvel, right? Or some of these other auteurs, because they're doing stuff that the mainstream can't do, but that's why they're not commercially successful, right? Or you have the Jodorowsky you're talking about. He tried to make Dune, right? There's that whole documentary where it's like,
it's not even Dune. It's just like this crazy, like,
it's not even Dune.
LSD
Dune
trip off the seat of the idea.
It's not even Dune. It's not even Dune. But he's pitching it as Dune because it's attached to the most famous sci-fi story in the last 50 years.
So even Jodorowsky has to take.
Yeah. So even he could not make the mainstream. He decided, screw it, I'm going to make a comic out of it. We'll call it In Call. And then he did that, right? So it's like, so to your thing, it's like, yeah, if you just want to make your art, then you do your art, and eye is in the beholder. If you're trying to make art that someone will pay you for, and they're paying you because they think a lot of other people are going to like it, then you do have to tilt your version of what's good or what. I don't know. It's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah,
it's a dilemma that everybody tries to figure out as they're putting
for
food
me
on the table.
Yeah, for me personally, it was like I always wanted to either make music or make art, right? And I've done both of those things, but they've never been my primary source of income. I could never crack that, like, because there again, and the type of music I was making was not extremely commercial kind of stuff. It was like, hardcore punk and heavy metal kind of stuff.
Right.
Which, and I didn't have the particular temperament for like, on the few sort of dalliances I've had with like actual people being interested in putting stuff that we did out. I could never fold over and like change stuff because people were like, hey, you can make this and this might be like a little more palatable to the masses. Like, nah, I don't want to do that. And then on the other hand, I've had a somewhat successful career being a graphic designer, and that is entirely my graphic design success. The limited success I've had in graphic design has been entirely about pleasing a client.
Yeah.
By doing something a client feels great about paying me for, so, but then also working in that environment also feeds the thirst for like making stuff of my own. And then it also affords me the ability to be like, well, I don't really care if only a handful of people dig this, because I'm doing this for me, and maybe that, 10 people that might dig it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've told you, but yeah, at Comic-Con, I'm talking to these guys who have the dream job working at Pixar, and I'm like, why are you here with your little comic? And I'm like, you're at Pixar, you've got your dream job. He's like, I want to do my thing, and he doesn't even care. He doesn't have a big booth.
An amazing, amazing artist too.
And yeah, amazing artist. He has the dream job that like everyone would kill for, to work for Pixar, and yet when he clocks out at 8 o'clock, he wants to make his little story and sell them at Comic-Con for $5. And because he's working for the man, even if you're doing, the coolest thing on Pixar, you're working for the man. You want to do your own thing. I find that fascinating, because I was just like, at the time, like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
You did it. Go home and hang out with your family. You did it. You got the job that you wanted. He's like, no, dude, I want to make these stories that are about me.
But I think it's true of most creative people that you're just never satisfied,
Yeah, especially when you're working for a committee or working for a editor.
Yeah, creating by committee takes a certain type of temperament, and it takes a certain type of discipline that people who sort of maybe pass people off as hacks or just doing it for the money. It takes discipline, and it takes a lot of like developing a thick skin and doing any kind of creative thing. Anything, man. You're a carpenter. You don't want somebody who doesn't know anything about carpentry sitting there critiquing. But oftentimes you build a cabinet for somebody, and somebody,
Yep.
I don't like the stain that you used or whatever. It's
right.
I don't know. It's this endless kind of thing that anybody who's trying to make something or do something of their own faces. It's not. It's almost a universal human thing. Yeah.
It's true. Well, brother, I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank everybody for listening to our show. I love doing these episodes. We'll definitely do some more in the future. Thanks a lot for joining me, and take care, everybody. And I'll see you guys later.
Peace
out. Peace out. Okay.